You're making big talk here about saying going in there. Are you talking about putting the belt up right now?
Lance was one of a kind.
Lance was more laid back, you know, and he would lay back and joke and a little bit and let maybe laugh a little bit.
Lance Russell, I think he got the name Banana Nose. And Lance Russell, to me, is one of the greatest announcers of all time. They didn't take nothing away from Dave Brown, because Dave Brown, you right there with him.
Lance and Dave together, especially Lance and that leading it, it was magic here. I've seen all the other areas. I've seen tons of promotions and their guys, and they were all good. But to me, Lance and Dave were just the best.
But it was Lance and Dave Brown, and together, they were a great combination.
Best announcer ever. And you have a lot of announcers in this day and age that don't know a hammerlock from a headlock.
We didn't realize how great we had it, that we had this live show. When something happened on that show, whether somebody slipped up and said a bad word or whatever happened, it was there. It was live and it was happening.
Live TV, 52 weeks a year, 90 minutes. And only one or two little screw-ups ever. And that's, you think about that.
It was a little bitty studio. They had two sides of seats for the people, and the rest was for the wrestlers and the cameras. And that studio would be packed every morning. People would be lined up down the street just to get in.
Lance had been the program director for Channel 13. And that was his real job, and wrestling was a side job.
Lance was the perfect man for that job.
Lance had a good voice. He knew the product. He studied the product.
When you talk to Lance off camera, it's the same person that's on camera. His little sayings are ones he uses every day in his life. It's the same person. There is no difference. And that got over with the fans.
You take Lance Russell out of that, and a lot of that magic's gone. That's how important Lance Russell was to it.
Someone I used to see, but she don't give a damn for me. But let me get to the point. Let's roll another joint, turn the radio loud. I'm too alone to be proud, and you don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels to be me. I'm learning to fly, but I ain't got wings. Coming down is the hardest thing. Well, the good old days, yeah, running down a dream that never would come to me, working on a mystery, going wherever it leads, running down a dream. Breaking her heart.
Hey now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Podcast Express, everybody. We're doing it again early this week. I have some family business to take care of tomorrow and Thursday night. My wife is, my beautiful, lovely wife is flying in from Houston, Texas. She's on a work trip right now. So I got to go to the airport and pick her up tomorrow. So we're doing it tonight. Which means we're doing it ahead of the Observer. So for everybody that talks shit saying all we do is read the news from the Observer, once again, we have proven you wrong. And this week we're reading the news from all kinds of different sites because we didn't get a chance to look at one consolidated document. But how's it going, Joe? It's been, kind of been a fucked up week, an eventful week, but, sad in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we lost a couple great legends near and dear to both of our hearts on both sides. The only thing I'm really happy about this week so far, my Yankees won last night, so we're still alive in the playoffs, but that's about all I got going for me right now.
Yeah, I guess Aaron Judge did really good last night, huh?
Yeah, man, he hit another home run. The guy's just been killing it this year. He's got to be the MVP.
I can't wait till he pops dirty for steroids. That's going to be great when that happens, just to see your face.
Fresno State guy, come on, give it to me.
Yeah. I will give that to him, so that's awesome. But anyway, obviously, I don't know how much this helps, but, I lived in Las Vegas for 4 years, and I absolutely love that city. And for something like that to happen in Las Vegas just made me sick to my stomach. And I didn't comment on it really on Facebook or anything like that. I just kind of stayed away from it because I was just sad by the whole thing.
Yeah.
Joe, you came and visited me one year. We went to the Mandalay. I've been to the Mandalay a million times. And the MGM right there too. I spent so much time there. I love that city. I was actually supposed to be going there here in a couple weeks, and it got canceled. Not because of this, just because of I was supposed to go for training, and training got canceled. And, one of my absolute best friends, he still lives there, and I reached out to him the next day, and obviously he wasn't there. So once I got all the details of what happened, but, man, I've been getting messages from people, not from the Pod Express folks, people that listen to the show or anything, just friends of mine and family of mine, and they like to hear what I think about a lot of these situations. And these I'm gonna stay away from them, especially in a public forum, because I don't think that I'm helping. And a lot of times whenever something happens and we give an emotional response, it really does nothing to help the situation. So my comment is no comment. I just think the whole situation sucks. It's just really sad. I feel so bad for everybody there. And, the UFC, they have a card there this coming up weekend, UFC 216, which we're going to get into in a little bit. And, it's real somber, real sad event going on all week. And I just, I feel terrible for everybody. So, thoughts and prayers out to the city of Las Vegas, the city that I love, that I called my home for a long time. So, not to just move on from that, but man, you said that we lost two people kind of near and dear to our hearts, and you were absolutely correct. Let's talk about Tom Petty first.
Yeah.
One of my all-time favorite musicians. I love his music. He has a channel on Sirius Satellite Radio, and he has a show on there that I like to listen to every now and then. And I started just counting all of the great songs that he's done. Tom Petty is one of those guys that's been around so long that you tend to forget just how many hit songs the guy has.
Oh, just a deep library. I mean, aside from maybe the Beatles and Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty has just one of the deepest libraries of great hits.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. From American Girl to Breakdown to Running Down a Dream, Free Fall, and I mean the list just goes on and on and on. So it was kind of an emotional roller coaster because they had put out there the news that said that he had died, and then all of a sudden the LAPD comes back out on the internet and they say no, he's not dead. And then so I was like, oh, okay, great. Maybe he's gonna pull through. Kind of similar situation what happened with Ric Flair, but. Nope, it turns out that he was just kind of hanging on to dear life, and he went ahead and passed away. And, it was just real sad. If anybody out there, if you have Sirius Satellite Radio and you get a chance to hear Howard Stern, he did a really great tribute to him on his show. And he went over through his whole catalog. It was just a brilliant tribute. He does a really good job at those. So take a listen to that. Howard's the man when it comes to those things. But
yeah, and I encourage everybody. I posted a video right after it happened. Not necessarily one of my favorite Tom Petty songs, but maybe my all-time favorite music video for "Don't Come Around Here No More." If you guys haven't seen it, it's basically Alice in Wonderland with Tom Petty as the Mad Hatter. The story behind it, one of my favorite all-time stories it was just Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and they were partying with Stevie Nicks, And of course, in that time, everybody high out of their mind. And one of Stevie Nicks' ex-boyfriends tried to show up at the hotel and was trying to beat down the door. They were just yelling at him, don't come around here. And while the guitarist for Tom Petty was high on acid, I believe, he was going on a trip, and that's what he was seeing during the entire experience. And they turned that into a music video.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
It's a great video. Great video.
Yeah, this was a tough one. He was lucky on King of the Hill. A lot of people may not realize that, maybe not remember that, but he was also a part of King of the Hill. He did a lot of voiceover work. He had just one of the best voices in rock music, and altogether. So just a big loss for several different communities there.
Yeah, he's an amazing songwriter. Just all around, just great. And his catalog's just amazing. And then, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, Free Fallin'. I mean, it's such a cliche to call that the best Tom Petty song because that's what everybody goes to. But man, like, it's such a powerful song that really just fits with almost any generation.
Yeah. And then to top it off, we lost. I think more pertinent to this show. I know people are calling or listening, and they're like, "Oh, we want to hear wrestling." Well, we're trying to get all the sad stuff out of the way first, though. We can get on to actual wrestling news. But man, Lance Russell died. Lance Russell was the voice of Memphis wrestling for 30 years. Well, I take it back. He was there for 30 years. He left and he came back. So he has been the voice for Memphis wrestling for 50 years. The voice and the face of it. He's one of the guys that's most associated with Memphis wrestling. When you think of Memphis wrestling, you think of Jerry Lawler, Jackie Fargo, Lance Russell, and Dave Brown. Dave Brown being the weatherman there in Memphis on Channel 5, who was Lance's co-host. And Lance just had one of those just great, great voices. And obviously, I did not grow up with Memphis wrestling. So people are like, "Oh, you grew up in California. What do you know?" Well, you're right. I did not grow up with Memphis wrestling. I didn't grow up with Lance Russell. I started to do research later in life when I was an adult into a lot of wrestling that I did not grow up with. And that's why God invented YouTube. It was for that very reason. So that way we can go and research a lot of other things that we were not able to see. And one of the things that I always was fascinated by was Memphis wrestling. And YouTube just has hours and hours and hours of Memphis wrestling videos. And I watched a lot of those for years. And then every once in a while, I would just get bored. I'd have a night to myself or something like that. And I would just go on YouTube and I would just Google search Memphis wrestling videos and just watch them. And his voice was just so iconic and so amazing. He reminds me a lot of Vin Scully. If for those of you who are not sports fans, Vin Scully is the voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He actually had come over from Brooklyn in the 40s, in the 50s. He came over from Brooklyn and was with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Came over. He was there with Jackie Robinson. Just all the great all the great Dodgers of all time. Sandy Koufax. He was there for every single era up until last year when he retired in his 80s. That was Lance Russell. He was there for every single moment of Memphis wrestling from 1959 till modern day. And Memphis still does they still have an independent circuit there, and he's no longer the host of that show, but he's still loosely affiliated with them. So every big moment that there's ever been in Memphis wrestling was called by Lance Russell. Just an awesome guy. Earlier today, I tweeted out a video a tribute to Lance Russell that Steve Beverly did. Steve Beverly's a program director there in Memphis. And also, last night, I uploaded a video to YouTube. It was Lance Russell on the Wrestling Observer radio show back in the early 2000s. And it was he's like the sweetest old grandpa. He's like America's grandpa. Just a guy that everybody would want to know and would want to be around. And, the guy was 91 years old. So obviously it's not like, life's too short. No, it's not one of those situations. Like, he had a good run. He was around a long time, and he was a great guy. And everybody, the outpouring of love and support for him and the wrestling community, you've been seeing it for the last couple of days. It's just been amazing. And his daughter, who I apologize, I don't have her name in front of me. His daughter actually died on Friday. And then on Friday he had a fall. He got hurt. He had to go to the emergency room, and it got real bad. And then he passed away yesterday. So just kind of a real sad way to start the show. But I think that I think we can look fondly back on, Tom Petty, his music and his music videos and all the great things that he's done. And you can go onto YouTube and just look up Lance Russell and all the great moments in Memphis wrestling that's all over YouTube. And you will no longer be sad. And yesterday also, I sent out a link for a documentary about Memphis wrestling, a documentary that really, really got me interested in that territory. It's called Memphis Heat. It came out in 2011, and they really just document the entire history of Memphis wrestling and just how big it was and how important it was there in that territory. So I really encourage and urge everybody to go out there and check that out. But Joe, I know you probably you don't know a whole lot about Lance Russell, but did you get a chance to see any of the stuff that I had sent out, or did you look up anything on YouTube?
Yeah, not yet. That was actually because when you were tweeting it out, Meltzer actually sent something out. I believe it was an interview that he said he doesn't recommend something for everybody, but this with Russell was one that he would recommend everybody. Actually, ask everybody to go check it out. That's actually my plans for this weekend. I've got nothing leading up to Hell in the Cell on Sunday, so I've got nothing going on Saturday, and I was just going to get caught up on that. I honestly, when somebody refers to somebody as the Vince Scully of their sport, of their form of entertainment, to me, that's about the biggest compliment a person could get, because Vince Scully, to me, is the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what sport. So to hear somebody put in that stature is just phenomenal. And, really, it's just, like you said, a tough way to start the week, man, because that is something that he clearly had an effect on everybody in wrestling. Unfortunate that he's not part of WWE's history, but you can clearly see from everybody else in wrestling that he made an impact on their careers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he really influenced guys like Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and some of the more well-known announcers that we would all have heard of. So, rest in peace, Lance Russell. Rest in peace, Tom Petty, and then rest in peace, everybody that was hurt or affected. Or, I'm sorry, rest in peace to those that died in Las Vegas. I don't mean to laugh at that. I messed up my words there. But anyway, not to be on a downer, I'm going to, Joe, you'll probably hear it in the post-production, but I'm going to add some Lance Russell stuff to this broadcast, and maybe even an illegally downloaded Tom Petty song. So since I can't get my iTunes to go into the this editing software that I have, I do own Tom Petty songs, so it's not like I didn't pay for them already. I just can't figure out how to get it into the software that I got. But yeah, so that's a tough way to start the show, man. So let's get back into some fun stuff. Lots of things to talk about. The Shield is reuniting, and Joe, you found a very interesting factoid, and you posted that the other day that got a lot of play. What was it that you had put out there?
So I don't know if WWE did this on purpose. Maybe when they realized it had happened, they kind of timed it out this way. The Shield debuted at Banker Life House in Indianapolis. It's where they made their debut. They attacked Ryback and put him through the table there. A couple years later, night after WrestleMania, when the Shield broke up, right there, same arena in Indianapolis. Lo and behold, Monday Night Raw next week, the exact same arena that the Shield would have debuted and broken up at. And we're coming up on their next pay-per-view. They obviously have the cliffhanger there at the end of Raw, which Ryan Satin tweeted out the absolute best video for that cliffhanger that they had on Raw.
Oh, my God. Kudos to Ryan Satin. That was so great.
Yeah, and I hope, and I'm sure he made that himself and didn't get it from somebody else, but that was perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, the timing of it, like I said, maybe WWE realized it this year when they were coming up on it, and they just felt like it fit right. They like to do little teasers like that every now and then, little Easter eggs. So, I mean, it's a perfect setup, and I feel like we're finally going to see that full-on Shield reunion next week because it makes too much sense now.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely happening. I love that teaser at the end, and I think that WWE should run with the video that Satin made. I think that would sell more tickets than what they're currently doing. But no, I thought the way they ended the show was perfect. I loved it.
And you know what's really important about it is, they did their cruiserweight thing, which I'll get to that later. And then they cut to the screen where Roman was sitting, and something interesting happened, something I thought would not happen. The crowd cheered.
Yeah.
And that's big. And then obviously when Ambrose got shown, the crowd cheered a little bit louder. And then when Rollins got shown and they were all three there together, they blew up.
They sure did.
And that's huge, because I was worried, and I still have some reservations, but I was worried that when you put those guys back with Roman, it might have fans turn against them as opposed to getting behind Roman. And it appears I'm wrong. The crowd was really happy. Obviously, people love the Shield, so they might have done it. They might have fans on Roman Reigns' side for once.
Yeah. I think that doing the Shield thing, people have been talking about it for a while, reuniting the Shield, and that being one of the things they can get to make Roman Reigns a babyface. And I get the feeling, even for the first couple of matches, whenever Roman gets tagged in, he's going to get booed, but the whole act as a whole will be cheered.
Yeah, definitely. And the Shield, we've talked about it before, but they are, I was around for Evolution. Obviously, they were in my younger days, but the Shield is like my version of Evolution or of the NWO or the Four Horsemen. Like, they made a huge impact. They were the most dominant faction that WWE had since Evolution.
Yeah.
And all three guys came out of it huge stars. And that's just not something...
All main eventers, all world champions, man. Yeah.
All world champions, yeah. And at this point, I mean, Ambrose is the only one of the three who hasn't been inside the main event of WrestleMania. I mean, Rollins, technically, he entered in the middle of a main event, but he was the main event of WrestleMania 31. Reigns obviously has main evented multiple times. Like, that's huge. That's something they haven't done in a long time.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I really am excited that they have gotten Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas out of the picture completely, and they brought in Sheamus and Cesaro. I was like, maybe it's time for the Sheamus and Cesaro feud with the Shield to be over, but I think they did the right thing here by putting them into this one and getting rid of Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, and that. I think this 6-man tag that they're going to have at the next pay-per-view is going to be fantastic. I mean, all those guys are great. To include The Miz. The Miz has looked great. And the match that he had with Roman Reigns on Monday was fantastic. I loved that match. That was a great match.
Yeah, he's just a hard worker, man. He's not a special talent like a Cesaro would be or like Seth Rollins. But what he lacks in ring actual ability, he makes up for with hard work. And that's what's really important, Obviously, he's probably the best on the mic there is, but he's not going to get left behind because of his ability inside the ring. And I think this match, it could potentially steal the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be one of the best matches, especially for a 6-man tag match, because usually the more people you get in there, the more cloudy the match gets. I don't think there'll be any issues with this.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be awesome. I love the feud, and I have an idea for the post-feud. Samoa Joe is out right now, and he's coming back probably in November. Okay. And in November, the Authors of Pain are going to be basically doing their blow-off at the NXT TakeOver before Survivor Series. I think they get some legs out of the Miz and the Bar versus the Shield, and maybe that could lead into November, and then after Survivor Series, a Samoa Joe and Authors of Pain versus the Shield feud to kind of lead you through Royal Rumble, where they transition Roman back over to Brock Lesnar. What do you think?
You know what? Like, right when you said Authors of Pain, I knew where you were going, and I love that idea. The only worry I have is, are you fine with the Shield losing, or do you want to have Authors of Pain lose that early on? But aside from that, if you can get the booking side of it worked out,
I think the Shield can lose right now as long as Roman's not taking the pin, because Roman's obviously going to go fight Brock at WrestleMania. Yeah. So I think it would be perfect if they lose in a 6-man and then you transition Authors of Pain over to Rollins and Ambrose at WrestleMania in a tag team match. I think that'd be great. And then you got Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns.
There you go.
I think those are two huge matches. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that a good part of that is that also immediately for people who don't watch NXT, because there is still a large part of the WWE crowd who doesn't check out NXT. If you're putting Authors of Pain in there with Samoa Joe facing the Shield right out of the get-go, it tells people immediately, like, these guys are for real. I mean, obviously their size is going to show that, but booking them against the Shield will help further along that story. So honestly, that's a great idea, and I hadn't even thought of it.
And those guys are getting really good. I mean, I know that DIY carried them to some really good matches, but I think overall those guys have gotten extremely good. They're probably the two of the most improved guys that they have in the whole company. So bringing them in, I think they hang with the Shield. I think those matches would be awesome, and I think they would have a good guy in Samoa Joe kind of leading them around. That would be just good stuff. I just get excited thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully, I like the idea of them keeping Paul Ellering with them, because he's kind of an old man, but I like the element he's added to Authors of Pain. So there you go. Like, throw that out at Survivor Series, and I'm sure it'll be a hell of a match. Yeah, man, I like it. So we got speaking of hell, we got a pay-per-view this Sunday called Hell in a Cell. It's a big card. I'm kind of half excited for it. It's not as big as the No Mercy card, and the No Mercy card was great up until the very end. I get the feeling that this one might compete with No Mercy as far as match quality goes. So the kickoff match, which I think could be my Who Gives a Shit. I don't know. I have one already listed down, but this one might be my Who Gives a Shit, because you got Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin, who I like. Right, and they're taking on the Hype Bros, and it looks like the WWE is going to use this as the final straw in the Hype Bros tag team splitting up for good that has been teased for 2 months. Hype Bros splitting up, who gives a shit, right? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't even care about
any chance you watch the kickoff show? Any chance?
I mean, because I take that back. It depends on how long the Niner game goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if the Niners start getting their ass kicked and they're down by like 30, I'm probably going to watch the kickoff match.
They're playing Indianapolis, though, so.
Yeah, true.
But they're playing Frank Gore. Well, this ain't a football podcast, but they're playing Frank Gore. Frank Gore might want to, fuck them up.
Yeah, so who knows? Yeah. But, yeah, if the Niner game's over in time, I might check out the opening match, because I like Chad Gable as a performer. Yeah. I've seen him wrestle live. I've watched him a lot in NXT. I watched him on SmackDown. He has fun matches. I think he's better in the ring than Jason Jordan by far.
Absolutely.
And I've always enjoyed watching Shelton Benjamin. So I think it could be a fun match. I really don't care about the story behind it. I don't give a shit about the Hype Bros really, but I think it could be a fun match. So if I'm not doing anything else, I'll probably turn it on.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the road on Sunday, so I'm going to have to watch Hell in a Cell late. So, Joe, the Twitter is all yours. Be sure to send out star ratings. That'd be great.
Certainly.
Yeah, because I will be watching it on delay and staying away from Twitter altogether. So, the next match we got is Randy Orton versus Rusev. I really like what Rusev is doing right now. The Rusev #1 thing, and then having Rusev Day and having that one guy come out and sing for him. What's his name?
Aiden English.
Aiden English, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the whole thing. I don't know that this is going to be a good match. I think these guys could have a good match. Will the WWE let them have a good match? I don't know. But I gotta say, I'm just a big fan of Rusev.
Yeah. In terms of this match, I think what it really boils down to is which Randy Orton shows up. Is it the Randy Orton who's going to come out and work his ass off, or is it going to be lazy Randy Orton who's just going to go out there and do nothing? Because that is a problem with him. If he's lazy, it's not going to be a good match.
I think Randy Orton, and he said it on the Edge and Christian podcast, he really wants to turn heel, and I think it would be perfect for him to turn heel and then feud with AJ Styles, because that will get the most out of Randy Orton.
Yeah, the problem with him turning heel is how violent can they let him? Because when Randy Orton's heel, he's violent. He's never been. He had a short period there versus Undertaker where he was the cowardly heel. But aside from that, the best Randy Orton was the guy who was kicking people in the head and ending their careers. Will they really let him bring out that violence now? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how they could work that. But I think he needs a heel turn. He hasn't had one in a while. He's kind of gotten stale. He's clearly bored. And, he's just all around lazy, so a change is definitely needed for him.
Yeah, and a big, long feud with him and AJ Styles, I think, would do wonders for him, and do wonders for AJ, considering who he's wrestling tonight, or wrestling this weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and take Randy Orton in that match, and then hopefully the feud ends between them, but, who do you got?
I'm going with Rusev.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Embrace debate. I like it.
Yeah, I think Rusev, they're trying to get him built up a little bit. They may be trying to turn him face. I'm not sure, if they really know yet, but he's going to get a crowd reaction. And you just never know how much longer you're going to have Orton. He tends to go away. He's got a big family now, so he might need to take some time off leading up to Survivor Series. So it makes sense right now to go ahead and give Rusev the win and try to build him up a little bit.
Yeah. Next match, we got Dolph Ziggler versus Bobby Roode. This whole feud is built around the fact that Bobby Roode has a good entrance and Dolph Ziggler is jealous. How fucking stupid is that?
I would care about this match more if Dolph Ziggler came out to Cult of Personality.
Yeah, but they're not in Chicago. You had said that before. They're not in Chicago this Sunday. They're in Detroit.
Yeah, I think it will still get the reaction that you want.
Yeah, maybe.
But I mean, it's not going to happen, but that would make me care about it.
Yeah. I don't see them beating Bobby Roode this early. I think that he's kind of come out a little flat. Not, I think that's just because he's in a feud with Dolph Ziggler. So I get the feeling that Bobby Roode beats him, and he beats him pretty quickly.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they've done this a lot, bringing guys up from NXT, and they've just kind of they always, for some reason, throw him to Dolph Ziggler. Maybe it's because Ziggler is a hard worker.
And he's a gatekeeper kind of guy.
Yeah, and he's not going to hurt you. Dolph really doesn't hurt people. So maybe that's it, but they just keep throwing people at Ziggler, and it doesn't go very well. I mean, there's nothing exciting about it, and it kind of ruins the momentum the guy has. Kind of happening here with Bobby Roode, so hopefully he can, get the win here, move past it, and go on to bigger and better things. I wouldn't mind seeing Bobby Roode versus AJ Styles right after this.
Yeah, they could do that. That would be good. I mean, obviously they have their history in TNA together, so. But you got two guys that are both baby faces. I think Bobby Roode is better as a heel, but that fucking entrance, everybody loves it, so it's hard to make the guy a heel right now. But maybe that's something they could do. I honestly think my prediction. Unfortunately, Jinder's going to keep the title. Yes. Because they're going to India in December, so that means he's going to stay the champion. And I think they move Bobby Roode up to the main event to feud with the Jinder after this. Call me crazy, I just see that happening.
I mean, it would work. I would be fine if it does sound like, obviously, you said Jinder's going to keep the title. Go ahead and maybe just have Bobby Roode take it off of him at Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And, I mean, because he doesn't need it. He's clearly not moving the needle. I mean, people don't give a shit about Jinder Mahal.
Nope.
It's time to hinder Jinder, damn it.
Yeah. He's so stale. His interviews are the same every week, and then he tried to resort to saying racist shit to get heat, and it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So silly.
So they're going to keep it on him through the Indian tour, and then hopefully very quickly after that, get it off of him.
Yeah.
Move it on to Bobby Roode. And then from there, have Roode versus Styles or Nakamura or whoever the hell else you want to throw in there, because anybody's better than Jinder Mahal at this point.
I'm still of the opinion they should move Braun Strowman over and have Braun Strowman kill Jinder in about 30 seconds after the India tour.
I mean,
I think
everybody else would be all for that.
Yeah, and then you know what? There's no shame in moving Jinder down to the U.S. title picture and having him be the U.S. champion, and he can call it the, even though motherfucker's from Canada. He can call it the India Championship, whatever he wants to do. But he's got to get out of that main event scene. He just doesn't fit there, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the look they like, but man, it's still hard to get behind the guy when he was getting squat. He was basically Kurt Hawkins on Raw.
Yeah.
The night before, and then moved to SmackDown the next night and was #1 contender. It's hard to get behind that.
Yeah. The next match is for the Women's Championship. You got Natalya versus Charlotte. And, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, Charlotte won a Fatal 4-Way, and looks like she's going to face Natalya here. And you always got the threat of Carmella, cashing in her Money in the Bank. So, I don't know. I think Natalya keeps it here, and then they move it on to Starrcade in November, and then Charlotte wins it there.
Yeah, and honestly, if you haven't watched it before, these two faced off in NXT a couple of years ago. And before NXT was on the network fully, they had Charlotte versus Natalya. They brought in Bret Hart. They brought in Ric Flair. And Charlotte said it's really the match that made her career. It really brought the best out of her. And Natalya really showed her a lot of things that she had not seen before. And it was a phenomenal match. It is on the network now, but it was in NXT before the network existed. I would encourage everybody to go watch that before watching this match, because if they can live up to that, this will be a damn good match. It's if they let them pull out all the stops like they did before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're capable of having a really good match, but it's just, will they let them? I don't know. I see Natalya winning here. Who do you got?
Yeah, I go with Natalya too. I think you're going to need to draw out the feud a little bit, so it probably not the right time to put it on Charlotte. And really, Starrcade, you mentioned, that makes a lot of sense there.
Especially with the match that we're going to be reviewing later today. I think I'm going to tie it all in for everybody. So.
There you go. Bring it full circle.
Right. So the next match is for the Tag Team Championship. It's the New Day versus the Usos. And if you would have told me earlier this year that the New Day versus Usos would probably be one of the top feuds of the year, I would have said you're a damn fool and a liar. These guys have really put on some tremendous matches, and I'm looking forward to this Hell in a Cell match. I think, I think this match actually opens up the show. I think that would be a really cool way to open it up. Just get the first Hell in a Cell match right away, get it out there, and let these fuckers just have at it and go crazy and have a great match.
You're probably right, but that would be a bad idea. And you know why?
Why?
Who the fuck wants to follow that match?
Well, so you get that great match at the beginning, and then after that, you throw in like a couple of filler matches, maybe one, maybe two, and then you pick it right back up with a hot match, and then you end it with a hot match.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, if it were me, I think that match, it's probably going to be the best match of the night.
Yeah.
I don't see anything living up to it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have we seen the tag titles defended in the Hell in a Cell before? I know we've had multi-man matches before, but
this is the first tag team title match. I think the last time that there was a tag team Hell in a Cell, and you could probably Google this, but it was DX versus Vince McMahon and The Big Show.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
I think I could be wrong.
But, I mean, and I'm trying to think back a little bit more. I think also this will be all of these competitors' first time in Hell in a Cell, which it's always interesting to see that happens because, yeah, it's wrestling. Yeah, they work on the matches, but it is a different element. You're a little bit more cramped. I mean, you don't have as much freedom outside of the ring, and you do have to work the cell itself in because the crowd wants to see people be thrown into it, obviously. I mean, that's why it's there. So it'll be interesting to see how they go with that. If Xavier is in the match, but actually Kofi is out, so Xavier has to be in there. He's going to do something crazy. That guy is an athletic freak, and he does a lot of big spots.
Yeah.
I think we'll see something phenomenal from him Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm saying it's going to be match of the night. And I think the New Day, they win it here, and they move on to feud with whoever's next, basically. Whoever, maybe Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin. But, yeah, I really like this feud. It sucks that it's got to end, but they've been going on for a long time. So I got New Day. Who do you got?
Yeah, I got New Day, too. They're the most over tag team right now. It makes no sense to pull the titles off of them. They move more merch than anybody. And they're consistently putting on great matches, so why move on?
Yep. The next match is for the United States Championship. It's AJ Styles versus Baron Von Douchebag, Baron Corbin. I don't care about this feud. I love AJ. I think Baron Corbin's going to be good one day. He's just not there yet. I see AJ Styles winning this match, winning it clean, and winning it within about 10 minutes. So,
yeah, I wouldn't drag this match on too long. It makes no sense to put the title on Baron. I think this is just kind of something to hold him over until the next pay-per-view. So I got AJ, and you're probably right, under 10 minutes there.
Yeah. The next match, semi-main event for the WWE Championship, Jinder Mahal versus Shinsuke Nakamura. And I said it earlier, I think if it was me, like if they put me in the Booker chair, I would put Nakamura as champion and fucking move Jinder back down to the mid-card. But, I think because they're going to India in December, they're going to keep Jinder as the champion.
Yeah, and you're probably right there. I hate that that's the line of thinking because it takes away the excitement of a surprise there. I mean, I really like going into a match not knowing what the hell is going on. That's kind of why No Mercy was so fun to me, is I really didn't know who was going to win the big matches. Here, knowing they're going to be in India, Jinder is the only quote-unquote Indian champion that they have, it would, business-wise, with the way they pushed him, be stupid to pull the title off of him right now.
Yeah.
For the push they're trying in India, and he'll probably win. It'll probably be clean. Well, actually, no, it won't be clean. Somehow the Singh brothers will get involved, and it'll basically be the same thing we've seen ever since he's been champion.
Yeah. It's going to be a nothing match. I don't think it's going to be very good, but what are you going to do? All right, so the main event is going to be Shane McMahon versus Kevin Owens, Hell in a Cell. And this feud is so good right now. I know everybody was talking shit about it. They didn't want to see this match. They didn't want to see Shane McMahon wrestling and blah, blah, blah. But he's a star, and the guy knows how to hook you in, and he knows how to show emotion. And their brawl that they had in the concession stand, which I don't know this for a fact, but I think it might be an homage to Lance Russell, because one of the most famous scenes in Memphis wrestling history was the Tupelo concession stand brawl. It was the first time that it ever happened in the history of wrestling, well, that anybody can prove, I guess. It happened in Tupelo, Mississippi, where Jerry Lawler and... Do you know who Wayne Ferris is?
Who?
Wayne Ferris.
I do not.
All right, he's called the Honky Tonk Man, but he was part of a tag team back in the late 70s called the Blonde Bombers before he became Honky Tonk Man. And the Blonde Bombers were feuding with Jerry Lawler and superstar Bill Dundee. Now, Bill Dundee was like this little 5'6" Australian guy, but for whatever reason, people believed that he was a bad motherfucker. And he feuded with Jerry Lawler off and on, and then they became a tag team. Well, they feuded, and they had a match in Tupelo, and it just went crazy. They actually did something that's similar to what the NWO did 20 years later, where they kind of the announcers left their booth and they had cut off the TV, and they said, "Oh, hold on, get that camera over here," and they went over to the concession stand, and all the wrestlers were fighting there at the concession stand. And Lance Russell has this amazing call where he goes, "Oh my God, there's mustard everywhere. I hope it doesn't get on the camera." he was so concerned for the camera. It was so great. But if you get a chance, take a look at the concession stand brawl with the Blonde Bombers versus Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee. It was a great great scene. But anyway, maybe they had it already planned out, but I get the feeling that it might have been a little homage to Lance Russell. So I thought that was really cool. I thought the brawl was cool, and Kevin Owens has just been money in this whole feud.
Yeah, I mean, he always is, and I get really tired of people saying, I don't want to see Shane wrestle. Why is Shane in there? It's only because he's Vince's son. Those people need to shut the hell up, because Shane McMahon has never had a bad match. The guy, if he wanted to be a full-time wrestler, would be a star. I mean, his match with AJ Styles this past year, and yeah, it was AJ Styles, I get it, but it was the best match of the night.
Yeah.
And this kind of environment in Hell in the Cell with Kevin Owens, because yeah, he had the match with Taker, who was a very old Undertaker, wasn't really fit for that environment at the time. You want to see what Shane McMahon can do? Go watch King of the Ring versus Kurt Angle.
One of the greatest matches I've ever seen.
One of the most violent matches I've ever seen, and watching the story behind it, where Kurt was trying to suplex him through the glass, and he asked Shane, it's not breaking, and Shane said, "Put me through the damn glass, do it again." And finally, on the third try, he got it, and Shane's got a concussion at this point, very clearly, and they're inside of what would be the entranceway there where the glass was for the King of the Ring sign, and Shane said, "Hey, put me through it again." And Kurt couldn't suplex him through it, so he just picked him up and threw him through it and broke 2 pieces of glass. It was violent. It was bloody. I mean, every Shane McMahon match, it has big spots. It has great psychology, and you're going to remember it. You'll remember Shane McMahon falling 50 feet from the Titantron with Steve Blackman hit him with a kendo stick. You just remember stuff like that. The elbow drop from the entranceway on was it Big Show?
Yeah,
and Tess was holding Big Show down. Shane McMahon is legitimately fucking crazy, and he's made for this type of environment. And Kevin Owens, at this point in his career, is better than Undertaker was at that point in Undertaker's career when Shane McMahon wrestled him in Hell in a Cell. So I think we'll see the match now that we should have seen then. and they're doing a false count anywhere, which means they're going to leave. They're going to get out of the ring.
Yeah. So that was my thing about this whole thing. I'm looking forward to the match. I love the feud. I think they did a very good job. But the false count anywhere thing is kind of, it's like, okay, why even have a cage if the plan is just to leave it? So it's like, why would they lock the door? Or are they just going to open the door? And then what would be the purpose of the cage then at that point? Because the purpose of the cage is to keep people out.
At this point, the cage is there to be a weapon. Because these guys hate each other, and they're going to need every weapon available to beat each other.
Then why not have a weapons match?
Well, that's what a Hell in a Cell is. You've got multiple weapons under the ring, and then you have one big-ass weapon surrounding the ring.
I don't know. I think it takes all the...
Don't overthink it.
I know, I'm old school. It just takes all this...
You know what would be great? Just the biggest troll ever is if they do a false count anywhere, and then they never even leave the ring.
Yeah. I get the feeling that somebody's getting pinned on top of the cage.
Probably.
I think
honestly,
that's
I don't think we've seen that before, so it would make sense.
Yeah. That could be, the match is going to be cool, don't get me wrong, but the moment you call it false count anywhere and it's supposed to be a cage match, then you take away all the psychology for it. So, that's just a little gripe. That's a little gripe.
Yeah, what do you think's more likely, though? Shane flying off of the cell or Kevin Owens flying off the cell?
Kevin Owens is a crazy motherfucker too, man. And I think that everybody's going to be expecting that Shane's going to do something crazy. And they might just swerve you and have Kevin Owens do something crazy. Because Kevin Owens has been known to do some crazy shit, man. If you see some of his stuff on YouTube, back when he was Kevin Steen, the guy was fearless.
Yeah. You know what I would like is if they would, probably not the announcer's table, but set up tables down below the cell and have it be like a spear or some type of suplex, something where they both fly off together.
Yeah, that could be cool.
We haven't seen that exactly before. They had Rollins and Ambrose where they were climbing it and fell off, but they were only about halfway up, so it wasn't nearly as cool. Have them fly off together.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Who knows, man? Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be a crazy match. I'm looking forward to it. But that's not the only thing that we got going on this weekend. UFC, they have a card this weekend. UFC 216, and... the main event, I think, is a really big match. Unfortunately, it's for a fake belt. It's for the fake lightweight championship of the world. So basically, the winner of this match is supposed to get a fight at McGregor, but McGregor is already talking about fighting Diaz. So really, something crazy is going to happen in this main event in order for either two of those motherfuckers to get a shot at McGregor. But so the main event is Tony Ferguson versus Kevin Lee. And it's for the fake lightweight championship of the world. I really like both these fighters. I really like this fight. I'm looking forward to it. XWT is going to be my friend because, again, I'll be on the road this weekend. I'm going to go ahead and pick Kevin Lee in this match. The guy is coming up. Yeah, the guy's coming up. He's looking really good. Tony Ferguson's been around a while. He's got a super long win streak. I think he's won like 8 or 9 in a row, right? But he's just been on ice for too long, and I think it's Kevin Lee's time now. I think Kevin Lee with the upset here.
Yeah, I want to say I watched Tony Ferguson on The Ultimate Fighter, and I want to say it was Brock Lesnar's season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
Lesnar and Dos Santos, and Tony Ferguson was just a huge piece of shit on there. I remember there being just some background on how the guy interacted. There was one fighter on there who was going through a custody battle with his wife. And, he talked about that with the other fighters. And he and Tony Ferguson got into some sort of argument later on in the season. And Ferguson just kept asking him, "Where's your kids? Where's your kids?" And I was like, what a piece of shit. Like, I haven't liked him since then. Yeah. But watching the guy fight, he's probably one of the best fighters to come off The Ultimate Fighter in a damn long time.
The guy's a great fighter. He really is.
Yeah, his striking is violent. He's very technically sound. He's accurate. A lot like McGregor, where he's not going to throw a lot of power, but he's going to hit you in a spot that'll drop you.
Yeah.
For those reasons, like, I'm going to go with Ferguson here.
Oh.
But you are right. He's been on ice for a while, so that definitely factors in. I wouldn't be 100% surprised if he loses, but I pull Ferguson here, and I'd like to see Ferguson versus McGregor in the future.
Yeah, I would like to see McGregor versus either of these two guys. I think it's going to be a tremendous fight. You're not paying for this fight for the star power. There isn't a whole lot of star power. I get the feeling, though, Kevin Lee takes this fight and becomes a star afterwards, and then he won't be denied a McGregor fight soon. Obviously, there's more money in the Diaz fight with McGregor-Diaz, but McGregor will be watching, and if Kevin Lee makes a name for himself here, he will want to fight this guy early so that way he can fight him before he gets too good.
Exactly.
Because McGregor or Mayweather, whenever he fought Pacquiao after he'd taken a ton of punishment and then fought him. And then he fought Canelo Alvarez before Canelo Alvarez got too good. So he was kind of picking his spots. And I think Kevin Lee's a Canelo Alvarez type in that he's really young right now. He's on a win streak. He's got a big mouth. He's getting popular. And McGregor's going to want to fight this guy before he gets a little too good. I think that's the strategy. So maybe Diaz is he's really hard to negotiate with, so maybe they just push that back and say, you know what, fuck you, and we'll go Kevin Lee and Conor McGregor if Kevin Lee wins. If Ferguson wins, McGregor's not going to want any part of Ferguson anytime soon. That's just facts. He's going to push for that Diaz fight, but yeah, I don't know. So the co-main event is Demetrius. Oh, sorry, I saw Demetrius Johnson's name and I fell the fuck asleep.
Yeah, it's better than Ambien.
Yeah. He's fighting a guy named Ray Borg. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's a fight. It'll happen. The problem with this fight is I think that hurts your buy rate with Demetrius Johnson being on the card.
Yeah. I think that if you
pre-card,
I think if you put Demetrius Johnson on a Conor McGregor card, it's gonna hurt the buy rate overall. Like I'm like, yeah, you know what? We are allergic to spending money on Mighty Moose Johnson. So
yeah, here's a true story, man. UFC came to Missouri for the first time earlier this year. I think it was back in April, and it was at the Sprint Center. I got pre-sale codes for it, and I didn't even know who was on the card. I was ready to go. I was like, I'm gonna buy tickets to this. I don't care. And as soon as I found out Demetrius Johnson was on the card, I canceled my tickets. I didn't even look. I didn't look at the rest. I wanted no part of it. Ticketmaster gladly refunded me. They're like, "Yeah, no, you're good," and I got my money back. I wanted nothing to do with it. I have no idea who else was on that card, but I just refused to give my money to any card that has Demetrius Johnson on it.
Yeah, man. I think it was really disrespectful of the UFC to put him in Missouri. I think that they hate Missouri now.
Honestly, I agree.
Yeah,
I 100% agree. I think Dana White hates Missouri, and he probably hates me because I've been an asshole to him. And he's like, you know what? Fuck Joe. I know he's going to want to come to this, and if I put Demetrius Johnson on this card, he won't.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So anyway, exactly. That's a fight that's going to happen. Who gives a shit? All right, Fabricio Verdum is going to fight Derek the Black Beast Lewis. If I call him the Black Beast, is that racist? If it's his nickname, or how does that work?
I think if he adopted the nickname himself, it's okay.
Okay, well, I'll call him the Black Beast against Fabricio Verdum, who apparently hates gays. Do you see that?
I didn't, but
wow. He got into an argument with Tony Ferguson at a press conference and repeatedly called him the F word over and over again, I guess. And so now they're going to put him into some homosexual training or something like that, to where he can be nice.
Yeah, I think the same thing happened with Michael Bisping a couple of years ago. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me at all. There's still UFC, MMA is still kind of behind the times in terms of culture and not being douchebags.
Yeah. So, well, we said that word out loud for a long time, and then all of a sudden it was banned. And now I understand. Like, I get it, and I'm not saying it, But for a long time, that was just part of our lexicon. That was just a word that I threw around all day, every day. It was just, it was made part of my vocabulary.
Yeah, I said it, but then I graduated high school and became an adult.
Right.
And, at some point you grow up. Like Fabricio Verdum's in his 30s, man.
Yeah. Well, he's almost 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been around a long time. But
get with the times.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Verdum versus Lewis. I'm gonna go Verdum on that one.
Yeah, I want to see somebody go to sleep here. Hopefully they just throw down and just punch each other in the face and don't try to do anything too fancy.
Yeah.
I'll go Verdum here, but I wouldn't be too surprised if Lewis gets behind a punch and knocks Verdum out.
Yeah. I mean, those are the main fights on the card. On the undercard, they got Will Brooks versus Nick the Carney Lentz. I think that's going to be a good fight. I'm going to pick Will Brooks there. Do you have any interest in that fight?
I honestly, man, outside of Ferguson, Lee, and Verdum Lewis, I've got no interest in the rest of these sites.
Oh, okay. So I'll just go ahead and run down some of the other fights that I think are interesting. Talis Latis versus Brad Tavares. Both those guys have been around a long time. I think Latis takes that one. John Moraga versus Magomed Bilatalov. I might have said that correct. I might have gotten that one right. I don't know, but I think Moraga takes that one. And then King Bobby Green versus Lando Venata. I'm going to go Venata on that one. Venata's looking really good lately. And then all the rest of them, I don't know too much about. So I would hate to disrespect anybody and give some fake commentary on some people I don't know. So there you go. I think it's going to be a good card overall. You're right. Demetrius Johnson does bring it down. So if anybody buys it, let us know how you liked it. And I will definitely have XWT as my friend on that one. So UFC's in Vegas this week, and we already talked about that on the top of the show. I thought it was really cool. The UFC is going to give $1 million to the victims of the Las Vegas shooting. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, man, we give Dana White a lot of shit, and rightfully so. But in an instance like this, UFC goes to a lot of different states. They go to a lot of different countries, but Vegas is the home of the UFC. That's where most of their fights are. That's
where their offices are at. That's where Dana White went to high school. So yeah, I'm sure that really affected him.
Yeah, and good on their part. $1 million, it may seem like a drop in the bucket to a company like the UFC who's just sold for billions, but it's still $1 million, and that's going to go a long way in helping these families and helping these victims. So good on their part, good on Dana White, and really commend them for that. Yeah.
No real way to transition from that, but so their exclusive negotiating rights time has expired, and so they're now allowed to negotiate their television rights with any cable company out there, or any network, for that matter, out there. I think this could really change the game, and it could affect not only the UFC, Bellator, but affect WWE as well, because sports rights fees are continuing to go up and up and up. However, networks are no longer making the same profits they were making. They're actually going down, 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 and all these networks are starting to look for alternative revenue, and they're going towards the internet. So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with UFC in the coming weeks, or in the coming. I think they have like a year before the contract's up. So I think it's going to be real interesting to see if they stay on Fox. Maybe they go to ESPN. Maybe they go to CBS. Who knows?
Yeah, and I could be wrong. I want to say the last deal they had was for like $1 billion over the course of a couple of years. I could be wrong on those numbers. I remember it being huge. I would expect this next one to greatly increase over that. I know Showtime, I believe their executives said they were interested. So, and obviously WWE's comes up in a year or two. It's going to affect them because it's a similar audience. Yeah. And the numbers when on live TV have been very similar. So directly, WWE is going to be watching this very closely.
Absolutely.
And it'll be interesting to see where they go. I would like them to get on a network that's not Fox, to where they're not trying to split up and do so many damn cards, because right now Fox will always do, I think they've got like 4 or 5 on the Fox network, and then they've got Fox Sports 1. So you're really splitting up your talent pool. I would like to see them on one solid network. That way, maybe to limit the amount of cards that they have every year, so you can see the cards be a little bit deeper. If they can get more revenue from a network, that might allow them to do that. So hopefully that's kind of the angle they go with. But in reality, they're just going to go wherever the most money is thrown.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we're coming up on the hour, so let's go ahead and go through some... we'll just merge all our interesting little tidbits of WWE news into our quick hits segment. So, quick hits, Shane O'Mac sells Shane O'Sacks of weed, apparently.
Yeah, he invested. He really set his sights. He had high hopes,
right,
for that business venture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he really planted his seed in a marijuana company that obviously was not going to be a wise return on his investment. There's a whole lawsuit going out now. He invested a bunch of money. I think it was like $100,000 in a marijuana growing company who said that they could grow marijuana 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because they have like a specific type of greenhouse. And turns out that was a lie. He tried to get his money back. They said no. And now he's taking them to court. So that should be very interesting. But I think it's real funny. Not to be political, but his mom right, is on the cabinet of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, his attorney general is Jeff Sessions, who is a little fucking elf, and he is probably one of the biggest anti-marijuana folks out there. I doubt any of that comes back to Linda or anything like that, but, maybe they have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I mean, what Shane needs to do is invest in a marijuana company in Colorado and put it right next to, like, Girl Scouts cookies.
Oh, yeah.
And it would just take off. Like, you're looking at huge profits there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been an interesting argument going around the internet the last couple of days, and it revolves around the Ultimate Warrior. So if you watched Monday Night Raw and you watched SmackDown Live, Dana Warrior, the Ultimate Warrior's widow, is becoming kind of a spokesperson for the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure for breast cancer awareness, and basically using her husband, Ultimate Warrior, using his logo and his, some of his mottos and things like that as kind of the face of this thing. And Ultimate Warrior, people tend to, revisit or revise history for their own purposes. Ultimate Warrior was not a nice guy.
No, he was an asshole.
He was an asshole. He said a lot of mean things about gay people, and he said a lot of mean things about Bobby the Brain Heenan, who had just recently passed away. He said about Bobby the Brain Heenan that he got cancer because he was two-faced, and there's a disease inside of him, and he's getting what he deserves, and this and that. He just said awful, awful things about Bobby whenever he had cancer. And now you got Dana Warrior, who's becoming this main spokesperson for breast cancer awareness. I just think it's kind of weird. I don't know. To have, what he said was very public, and it was, it wasn't that long. It was like 10 years ago when he said this stuff, so it wasn't like it was forever ago. And I get it. People should be forgiven, but he didn't ask for forgiveness before he died.
Yeah.
He believed that until the day he died.
Yeah, he never backed down or apologized for his comments. He did change in a lot of ways, and he did, mend a lot of bridges, but that was one he never cared to mend.
No, well, so the thing about it, he mended a lot of bridges, but he never once apologized to anybody. He didn't apologize to Hulk Hogan. He didn't apologize to anybody that he came out against and said all these awful things about. A lot of people apologized to him because they knew that was the only way to get him back in the company, but, he was not, I'm sure he was a good dad and a good husband, but to his peers, he was not a good human being. He was not a nice guy.
No, not at all. What it comes down to from WWE side, because they're philanthropists. I mean, they're all about marketing, and the Ultimate Warrior is just very marketable.
Yeah.
And that's all they care about. Like, he's got the face paint. He was very energetic, and that's the side that the fans see of him. But you got somebody like, I believe Hacksaw Jim Duggan was actually a cancer survivor. It would make more sense for him to be talking about cancer. Titus O'Neil, I think his mom is a breast cancer survivor. Titus is a very well-spoken guy.
Yep.
But he's not marketable like the Ultimate Warrior is. So we're just going to throw somebody out there who has never battled cancer in their life.
Who is mean to cancer victims.
Yeah, her late husband was an asshole to cancer victims. But that's the way WWE works.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were really interested in the right side of things, in all honesty, they wouldn't be partnered with Susan G. Komen, because most of their money goes to executives and doesn't actually go to research.
Yeah, those executives are snakes, man. They're like multi-millionaires. And I think there was a study, I don't know, something like 85% or something. I could be wrong. I might just be making up a number, but I know it's a high number. Like 85% just goes to the executives and the people that work there, and only like a little bit goes into like a cancer research fund.
Yeah, and that's just the way a lot of charities are now. Like, the same thing for the American Red Cross. Like, I don't want to talk bad about like every charity. I would just greatly encourage people to research a charity before donating to it.
Yeah.
But that's all WWE and other businesses. The NFL does the same thing. They just look at who is marketable. Like, who does the public know that we can tie our name to make us appear like we're doing our part.
Yeah.
And that's what WWE is doing here.
Yeah. Shayna Baszler has signed a contract with the WWE. She begins in the Performance Center. I thought she would go to the main roster right away, but it looks like she's going to do NXT first.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising given her age. Is she 36, 37?
Yeah.
But they did have Nakamura, who was a well-established star.
Well, Samoa Joe. I mean, they had him in there at 37 years old, and Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode's 40 now.
Yeah, so I guess they have a history of it. They don't bring... Honestly, I think AJ Styles and maybe Mike Bennett, for some reason Mike Bennett, are the only guys who have debuted on the main roster. And they even discussed having AJ in NXT too. They decided against it, thank God. But
right,
Triple H wants to get his people through there. It'll be good for NXT. I'm sure she'll have some great matches. She does have learning to do. I mean, she is still very new to the wrestling game, so hopefully she's not there too long, though, because I think she has some star power and would make an immediate impact.
Absolutely. Bradley Cooper, he looks like he might be playing Vince McMahon in the new Vince McMahon movie, Pandemonium. I don't, I like Bradley Cooper. I mean, he was great in The Hangover, I guess. I just don't see it right now. Maybe he can transform himself a little bit to play Vince, but I really was hoping for Daniel Day-Lewis to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think Daniel Day-Lewis sadly is retired from acting.
He's retired 3 times already.
Yeah, but I think this one is legit. I could see Bradley Cooper doing this role. I mean, Silver Linings Playbook he was in.
That was really good.
Phenomenal acting job in that. He did another one with Jennifer Lawrence. A crime movie, some kind of mob movie. I've drawn a blank. American Hustle.
Oh yeah, that movie was okay. I wasn't the biggest fan of that movie.
Yeah, I just think he has range as an actor. I think he can do several roles. I mean, he's going to need to be a little bit silly with the Vince McMahon if he does take the Vince McMahon role, because Vince does have some humor. But there's also going to be probably a side of Vince McMahon that we had never seen before. That will be very serious. You'll see a lot of the business stuff. And I think Bradley Cooper could, with his range, portray that well. At this point, he's been offered the role. We don't know if he's going to accept it or not, though.
Yeah, I don't know. And then lastly, Brandy and Cody Rhodes are going to be on this show called Wags.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't know.
Who gives a shit?
That could have been, yeah. Let's go. Let's go ahead and go to Who Gives a Shit, and then we'll talk about Harley Race versus Ric Flair. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right, my Who Gives a Shit is Sister Abigail. So some news has come out. On Monday Night Raw, they did a teaser. Bray Wyatt did a teaser that Sister Abigail is alive and will be coming in soon. And he was like in this rocking chair and like a scarecrow thing and blah, blah, blah. He attacked Finn Balor again. And it turns out that Bray Wyatt is going to be playing Sister Abigail. It's going to be his alter ego. Just like Finn Balor has an alter ego of the Demon, Bray Wyatt's alter ego is Sister Abigail.
All right, well, hold on. Because, who was it? Beckett, one of the NXT divas, sent out a teaser.
Yeah.
And a lot of talk that she could be Sister Abigail.
Well,
and
her
Wikipedia
wrestling
page...
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, her Wikipedia page already has her listed as Sister Abigail.
Yeah, but anybody could update that.
True.
Yeah. So Pro Wrestling Sheet is the one that's reporting this. And if you don't follow them on Twitter, you got, Ryan Satin, Chill Hartman, James Vanderbeek. They're pretty accurate when it comes to this stuff.
Wait, hold on. James Vanderbeek?
Not the guy from Dawson's Creek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, different guy. He spells his name Jaims. I don't know if that's his real name. That's his Twitter handle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense then.
And he always posts cool Photoshop pictures. If you don't follow him, you should. He's good.
Well,
and then Chill Hartman, he's always really accurate too.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I would have been interested in the Sister Abigail character 2 years ago when Bray Wyatt was still relevant, but I just got nothing for it now.
Yeah, I was really, really intrigued a couple years ago about Sister Abigail, but now I just don't care. Bray Wyatt has lost me as a fan. He's boring.
Yeah, he's a good character, but they've buried him too much. I think he has one of the lowest winning percentages of all time.
Yeah.
in WWE. But so yeah, who gives a shit on that?
Yeah.
Mine, they almost had me hooked this Monday night. I tuned in right in time to see the Cruiserweight segment. And Enzo Amore in the middle of the ring running everybody down. And he was going on and on about how the Cruiserweights attacked him and how none of them could have a title shot anymore. And then all the Cruiserweights came out and they surrounded the ring. And then he went on about how he had this contract that if any of them touched him, they would be fired. So at this point, you got every Cruiserweight cannot have a title shot. And if they touch Enzo, they'll be fired. But eventually you're going to have a title match. So obviously they're teasing that somebody else is going to be debuting. And I was getting very excited for this. I was getting myself pumped up because who could it be? Who could be coming to 205 Live and to the Cruiserweight division. Could it be Kenta?
I was thinking it was Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, that was my next one. Like, did they get Rey Mysterio signed? Like, I was getting really pumped up, and the segment overall was pretty good because Enzo went around the ring one at a time, just burying everybody on the mic, and it was pretty funny. It was just classic Enzo. But then right when I was on the edge of my seat, Kurt Angle announced his new signing, and it was Kalisto, which I honestly thought Kalisto was one of the masked guys on the ring that Enzo had buried. Like, I had no idea he wasn't already there, and it was the biggest letdown.
It was. I just felt so bad for that guy.
There was no excitement. Maybe 3 people in the entire arena clapped. I just don't give a shit. Like, I'm sure Kalisto's a good wrestler.
Yeah,
he's a great wrestler. It's just, with the way it was built up, it was such a huge letdown.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd been so great if when he got announced, Enzo just grabs the mic and goes, "Who the fuck is that guy?"
Yeah. Or because I think it was Grand Metalik who was the other guy in the past. If Enzo would have just said, "I thought this was Kalisto,"
right? Dude, he would have been instant babyface and over if he would have said that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, man. And whenever they tweeted out the video, and I put, "And the crowd goes mild."
Exactly. Man, I got myself really excited.
And then what a letdown. Yeah.
What a letdown.
Yeah. Who gives a shit? Oh man. So anyway, we have to go from who gives a shit to lots of people give a shit about this next match. So we're every week we review the Wrestling Observer Match of the Year. So right now we're on 1983, which was the year I was born. So obviously this match is a little bit before my time. But you had Ric Flair. We don't need to go into the history of Ric Flair. He is probably the greatest wrestler that ever lived. He is a 16-time world champion, but this match was for his second World Heavyweight Championship, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, which was the main title in the wrestling world at the time, because the WWF at the time was really just located on the East Coast. They didn't go anywhere else, but Ric Flair and whoever the NWA World Heavyweight Champion was, they were going to Mexico, Japan, Canada. They were defending that title all over the place. They're going to every single territory other than in Minneapolis and New York, AWA, WWF, and Harley Race was the champion. This was Ric Flair's second championship because he'd won it back in 1981. He had beaten Dusty Rhodes, and he just wasn't quite ready for the title yet. So he gave it back to I think Harley beat Ric Flair for it. So this was a return match 2 years later, and it was in Greensboro at the Greensboro Coliseum, which happens to be where WWE Starrcade is going to be here in the next next month on the 25th, and so that's why I think it's very interesting. The title of the show was NWA Starrcade, and it was called A Flair for the Gold, and it was Ric Flair as a babyface, which he had been mostly heel, and then he turned babyface for this feud right here with Harley Race, who was an all-time legend. Harley Race has been around a long time, a real tough guy. Harley Race, 7-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He just, had done it all, seen it all, just a huge superstar. And he had actually put out a $50,000 bounty on Ric Flair during the build-up of this feud. So I always thought that was really cool. And this was a huge match. Greensboro, for most of you don't know, it's in North Carolina, but it's a smaller city than, say, Charlotte or Raleigh. However, the Greensboro Coliseum was where all of the major events were held because that was the biggest stadium that had over 16,000 seats in it. So anytime they had a big, huge supercard, which happened to be always either on Thanksgiving or right around Thanksgiving, which if we're keeping track, November 25th is when WWE Starrcade is going to be. So it's all kind of tying in together, and there's a real rhyme and reason to what they're doing with Starrcade this year. And so this is the very first one. It was the very first pay-per-view. It was done on closed circuit television all over the country, where you can actually go to different stadiums, and they actually, I think you can get this on pay-per-view. So this is the very first, I guess, under the WCW banner, before WCW was even a thing. It was the very first pay-per-view that they had ever done. So this was a huge match, and it had a huge build-up, and everybody was looking forward to Ric Flair going into his home area in North Carolina and becoming the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And Joe, was this the first time you had seen this match?
Yeah, it was, and my favorite thing about the match, and there were some presentation styles that they did that I really loved. I loved the announcing on it. But I didn't have any character background for both. Like, obviously, I know who Ric Flair was. I know who Harley Race is. Harley Race still has a wrestling academy up in St. Louis, not far from me. But I didn't know the characters. But just by watching the match, you could, as an observer never seeing it before, you could tell who the heel was and who the face was.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I really loved the interaction. I wish they would let the referee in modern wrestling be a little bit more like the referee in this match was, because
this wasn't just any normal referee. This was Gene Kiniski, who was the NWA champion back in the 60s.
Yeah, and there was no like, hey, you got to break that up and start counting. Like him grabbing Harley Race by his fro and pulling him off of Ric Flair.
Yeah,
to break it up, like getting really physical to make sure that they were abiding by the rules, like pulling Ric Flair off of Harley Race, slapping his hands to make sure it wasn't a closed fist, really added to the story that was being told inside the ring that night.
Yeah, and if you want more background information on the feud and the characters, that Starrcade show was fantastic, and they built up that match all throughout the show. So you probably just watched it on the just that match, right? You didn't really watch.
Yeah.
So the file that you have is just. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I pulled it up on the WWE Network. It's on the network. If people like us don't have XWT, you can pull it up on the WWE Network. They got the full pay-per-view there. But yeah, I watched just that match.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I did love it. I did love it. I love the camera work, and I love the old, like, kind of dingy feel to that arena. And I loved how they had the overhead camera there, and and it would just go down onto the mat, and you just see a blue mat. You see 3 letters, NWA in yellow letters, and then you just see spatters of blood everywhere.
So much blood.
I love it, and that that blood is going to take me to my next point here soon. But I really like the match. I love that it's basically the beginning of Ric Flair's run as the #1 wrestler in the world. Even though he had won the title earlier, he just wasn't ready for it. They took it off of him pretty quick. So this was the beginning of, Ric Flair as the man, as the #1 professional wrestler in the world, and then he would go on to become the greatest of all time. So you need this match to tell that history.
Yeah.
My only problem with the voting for the 1983. And I obviously have not seen a whole lot of matches from 1983. But I watched the entire pay-per-view. That's how I watched this match. And if you guys were following along on Twitter, I was cussing out WWE Network on Twitter because it kept messing up. And so I watched the whole thing. That wasn't even the best match on this pay-per-view.
Wow. Big statement.
Yeah. And a lot of Ric Flair fans are going to be upset, and they're going to be like, you can't say that about Ric Flair. He's had the greatest match every time he's had a fucking match, motherfucker. Well, I hate to burst everybody's bubble. There's no bigger Ric Flair fan than me. But Ric Flair versus Harley Race was good for what it was. It's good for the time. The finish was Ric Flair coming off of the I believe the top rope and doing a cross body, and Harley Race trips over Gene Kiniski, who was down, and then just covers him with a cross body off the top rope. There's lots of blood in the match. I loved the match. It was not the best match on this show. The best match on this show was Roddy Piper versus Greg the Hammer Valentine in a dog collar match. That was the best match on the show. That was physical, just bloody, just 2 guys just going at it, beating the shit out of each other. I honestly think that this match got voted Match of the Year just because Ric Flair was in it, and because maybe it didn't have a gimmick attached to it, even though it was a steel cage match. But everybody needs to go onto the WWE Network, watch Starrcade 83, and watch Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine in a dog collar match. Now that match was fucking brutal. It was great, man. Awesome match.
Yeah. Looking at the way the voting might have been done, I mean, I know, especially with the Wrestling Observer voters, they really like the story leading up to the match as well. So I'm sure that really factored into it. It's just the story all the way building up to it. probably accounted for it as well.
Well, this was the most important match on the show, right? This was the biggest match. This had the most meaning to it. Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine was a non-title match, even though I believe Piper was the U.S. champion at the time. To put it in context, this is Roddy Piper as a babyface before he went to the WWF and became like the top heel in the business, taking on Hulk Hogan. He was there in the Mid-Atlantic area as basically he was like Ric Flair's best friend, and he was one of the top wrestlers there and was a babyface, and he had also done commentary. People really don't know this, but Roddy Piper was the very first heel color commentator, and he was so funny on the mic, they actually turned him babyface, and that's where we're kind of leading into here. This was just before Vince McMahon started picking all of the wrestlers from all the major companies and bringing them to the WWF, bringing them up north. And
was it the very next year would have been WrestleMania 1, right?
No, it would have been so this was in November of 83. WrestleMania 1 was in April of 85.
85, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that makes sense then. Because I know Roddy Piper, he would have been the main event of WrestleMania 1, right?
He was the main event. It was him and Paul Orndorff versus Mr. T and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, all right. Not to get too sidetracked there, just kind of giving out on the timeline.
But I'm real excited for you to be able to watch these matches for the first time. I had saw this match when I was a kid because they had a WCW put out a best of Ric Flair DVD or video cassette, and I had that video, and this match was on it. And then every time WWE puts out a Ric Flair DVD series, this match is on it. So I've seen this match a number of times, and I always thought it was good. It's not his best match. We're going to talk about one of his best matches later. And like I said, I don't even think it was the best match on the show. I just don't. But I love the match. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Ric Flair is great. I just love the way they threw punches back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so simple, but man, those guys they knew how to punch each other.
Yeah, and I like what you already alluded to. I liked the camera work of it, the overhead above the ring. They also, kind of did a far away shot from, back in the crowd. It presented closer to what, like what a Muhammad Ali fight would have been like back in that day.
Well,
it was more of a sports feel as opposed to, WWE, you have the hard cam and most of the work is done towards that.
Yeah, no, they definitely filmed it like a sporting event. And Gordon Soley, who was the play-by-play announcer, he was one of the greatest of all time. I know we talked about Lance Russell earlier. Gordon Soley was the Lance Russell of the Florida Atlanta territories, and he was absolutely great in this, and Bob Caudle's great. And then if you watch the whole show, you can have a young Tony Schiavone, who was probably 22 years old in the show, doing some of the backstage interviews. So, and the production quality is crap. I love it. It was just like they were cutting at awkward times, and like the announcers would just kind of like just stop talking for a little while. They go, "Oh, we're sorry, we're back." They had all kinds of technical difficulties through the whole thing because this was the first time that they had actually done anything like this. So. Just overall, Starrcade 83, I think everybody should go watch, and then watch this match, and then go back and watch Piper and Valentine. I think that needs to get a lot of love as well.
Certainly, yeah. Well, I'll probably check that out probably Friday night. That'll be my Friday night, and then get ready for a match of the 84 match of the year for next week too.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, that's gonna do it for us this week. I think we already know what we're watching this weekend. We got UFC, we got Hell in a Cell. Joe's gonna watch the Piper Valentine dog collar match. So, I think that's just gonna do it for us. Joe, what's your Twitter handle?
At Joe Gilbert 1992.
And then I'm at Get Up Mike, and you can always follow us on our podcast account is at The Pod Express, and watch our YouTube videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put up a bunch of old audio from Wrestling Observer from back in the early 2000s. We just put up John Cena from whenever he was in UPW. When he was called the Prototype before he'd actually come into WWE, and then we put up one of Brock Lesnar when he was in Ohio Valley Wrestling before he became a star, and then we have one of Lance Russell. We got Eric Bischoff just before WCW had folded. That's a really cool interview, just kind of getting some insight of the time. So we put up lots of cool audio, so everybody go check that out. Like, subscribe, share, and tell everybody about us. All right, peace out, motherfuckers. Sorry. All right, we'll talk to you next week. Bye.